war scouts shocked by impossible size of human army. The alien war scouts arrived at the edge of human space without lights and without sound. Their ship moved like a shadow between the stars. It was long and thin, built for speed and stealth, not for battle. For them, this mission was supposed to be easy. Captain Alan Brooks stood in the command chamber, watching the dark screen in front of him. He was tall, with gray skin and narrow eyes that reflected faint light. His species had studied war for thousands of years. They believed no new race could surprise them. Beside him stood Lila Grant, the chief sensor officer. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls. Numbers and symbols flowed over the display. She frowned, then adjusted the settings again. "This region should be quiet," she said in a low voice. The data from older probes said humans only settled a few systems here. Alan nodded. "That is why Command sent us. We confirm their strength. Then we leave." Eric Coleman, the youngest officer on the ship, stood near the rear station. He was responsible for communication and data storage. He had trained for years, but this was his first real mission. His eyes stayed wide as he watched the readings. The ship crossed an invisible line in space. Human territory. At first, nothing happened. No alarms, no weapons fire, no patrol ships. Alan allowed himself a small sense of pride. "See," he said, "they are careless. A young species always is." Lila did not answer. Her eyes were fixed on a single point on the screen. "Captain," she said slowly, "I am detecting artificial structures." Alan turned. "One colony?" "No," she replied. "Many. Too many." She expanded the view. Dots filled the screen. Then lines appeared, then layers. Eric leaned forward. "Those are orbital stations. Hundreds of them." Alan's confidence wavered, just a little. "Are you sure these are not old or abandoned?" Lila shook her head. "They are active. Power levels are high. Traffic is constant." The ship moved closer, still hidden. The scouts adjusted their sensors to avoid detection. What they saw made the room quiet. A human planet rotated slowly below them. It was blue and green with white clouds. Around it floated rings of metal. Shipyards, defense platforms, transport docks. Alan stared at the image. "That is not a border world," he said. "That is a fortress." Eric checked intercepted signals. "Captain, I am receiving human communication traffic." "Military?" Alan asked. "Yes, but also civilian." That surprised them all. Lila spoke again. "I am counting launches, cargo ships, troop transports, construction vessels. They are leaving the planet every few minutes." Alan folded his arms. "Perhaps they are preparing for something else." Eric hesitated. "Captain, the message content does not suggest panic. The tone is calm, organized." Alan felt a strange feeling in his chest. Humans were supposed to be emotional, unstable. That was what the report said. They moved deeper. Another system appeared. Then another. Each one looked the same. Heavy defenses, large populations, massive industrial zones. Lila ran the numbers again. "Captain, the population density is extreme." "How extreme?" Alan asked. She swallowed. "Even if only a small part of their people can fight, the number is still higher than our entire standing army." Silence filled the chamber. Eric broke it. "That must be wrong." "I recalculated 5 times, Lila said. "The data is consistent." Alan walked closer to the screen. He remembered the War Council back home. The elders had laughed when humans were mentioned. A soft species. Divided, easy to pressure. Now he was not so sure. They reached a deep observation point near a large human starbase. It was massive. Larger than any alien structure Alan had ever seen. Smaller ships moved around it like insects around a giant.
Eric's console beeped. "Captain, they have detected something." Alan's muscles tensed.
"Us? No," Eric said quickly. "A training exercise." "They are launching fighters." The view filled with motion. Hundreds of sleek human ships poured out of hangars. They formed patterns in space with perfect timing. Lila whispered, "They move as one." Alan watched closely. "Discipline," he said. "That takes years to build." Eric scrolled through intercepted data. "Captain, I am accessing historical records." "What do you see?" Alan asked. "Humans have fought many internal wars," Eric said. "Planetary wars. System wars. They lost millions. Still, they kept fighting." Alan nodded slowly. "A species that survives that learns quickly." The scouts followed a human fleet as it moved toward open space. More ships joined from other directions. Then more. Lila's voice trembled. "Captain, this is only one fleet." "How many fleets do they have?" Alan asked. "I cannot count them all," she replied. "They are everywhere." The ship drifted in silence. No one spoke for a long time. Eric finally said, "Our mission was to count their army." Alan looked at him. And Eric met his gaze.
"It may be impossible. They move to another system, then another."
Each time the same story. Training grounds covering continents. Cities built around military centers. Factories running day and night. On one planet, scouts observed soldiers marching in open fields. The ground shook under their steps. The line of troops stretched beyond the horizon. Lila zoomed in. "These are not machines," she said softly. "These are people." Alan's eyes narrowed. "Volunteers?" Eric checked records. "Yes, many of them." "Why would civilians volunteer in such numbers?" Alan asked. Eric paused. "Human culture places value on protection. Family. Home." Alan felt uneasy. A species that fights to protect, not to conquer, was dangerous. Suddenly, alarms flickered softly. Lila straightened. "Captain, a human patrol ship altered course. Are we compromised?" Alan asked.
"No," she replied. "They are not scanning."
"It is routine." Still, Alan ordered the ship to pull back slightly. As they retreated, Eric received another data burst. "Captain, I found something else." "What?" Alan asked. "Defense layers," Eric said. "If an enemy breaks through the first line, there is a second, then a third, then more." Alan exhaled slowly. "Endurance." "Yes," Eric said. "They plan for failure and for recovery." The ship moved to a safe distance. The view of human space filled the screen one last time. Lila spoke quietly. "Captain, our reports said humans were still learning war." Alan shook his head. "No, they are remembering it." He turned away from the screen. His thoughts were heavy. The elders would not like this report. It would change plans. It might stop a war before it started.
Or it might make it worse, Eric asked. "What should we send to command?"
Alan stood still for a moment. Then he said, "Send the truth. All of it." Lila nodded and began compiling the data. As the scout ship slipped back into the dark, human fleets continued to move, train, and grow. They did not know they were being watched. They did not need to know. They were ready, and the galaxy had no idea what it was facing. The alien scouts could not believe what they were seeing. Every new system they entered brought more surprises. It was not just the number of human ships or troops that shocked them. It was the organization, the discipline, and the quiet confidence in every human movement. Captain Alan Brooks sat in the command chamber, staring at the new sensor readings. His long fingers tapped nervously on the console. "How can this be?" he muttered. "One species cannot have so many ships, so many soldiers." Lila Grant, still focused on the display, shook her head. "Captain, I have recalculated. Even if humans have hidden populations, these numbers are beyond reason. I don't know where they get so many troops and ships." Eric Coleman, standing near the communication station, pointed to the holographic map. "Look at this, Captain. Every system we checked has active shipyards, training grounds, and fleets ready to deploy. It is not just one world. It is every world." Alan exhaled slowly. "We underestimated them." We thought they were young, weak, divided. But they are different. The scouts moved closer to a star system that housed one of the largest human military bases they had observed. Thousands of small ships moved out of hangars, while larger vessels left orbit in precise formation. Troop transports carried soldiers and equipment. Factories on the planet's surface produced new machines without pause. Lila scanned the data. Captain, these are not just military units. Civilian labor contributes directly. Everyone works toward the defense effort. Alan frowned. Civilians? They are training civilians to fight? Yes, Lila said. And the civilians seem willing. They do not complain. They move in order, following instructions, supporting the soldiers.
Eric's voice was quiet. Captain, they are not just preparing for war.
They are preparing to survive. Alan looked at him. Survive?
How do you mean?
Eric pointed to the map. Every planet has multiple layers of defense. If one line fails, the next is ready. They have supply lines, backup fleets, and reserves for every scenario. It is as if they expect war to last for decades. Alan felt a chill. Decades? No species prepares for that. Even the oldest empires assume battles last weeks or months. Lila's eyes widened. Humans do not fight like us. They are patient, and they are willing to lose thousands to gain millions later. It is not about honor or power. It is about survival. The scout ship moved quietly to observe another planet. On the surface, millions of humans trained in open fields. Soldiers marched in formation, their steps synchronized across miles of land. Machines carried weapons and supplies, following precise routes. Drones flew overhead, guiding movements and reporting progress. Eric whispered, Captain, look at the scale. They are training millions at once, and these are only the people we can see. There are more hidden inside cities, underground, and in factories. Alan rubbed his forehead. It is impossible. Our intelligence reports were wrong. Command will not believe this. Lila shook her head. We can only report what we see. The data is clear. Alan stood silently watching the humans move below. Their precision was unsettling. It was not fear that drove them, not anger or desperation. It was something else. Determination, discipline, unity. Eric looked at the communication feed. Captain, I am detecting messages between ships and planets. They coordinate everything. Every fleet, every squad, every soldier. They know exactly where everyone is at all times. Alan swallowed hard. Even when facing an enemy, we could not organize like this.
Lila nodded. They have learned from their history.
Humans survived countless wars between themselves. They do not waste resources, and they do not panic. Alan turned toward the sensors. Show me the population. Show me their potential army. Lila pulled up the numbers. Captain, even if only 10% of the human population fights, the army would be larger than the combined forces of 5 of our strongest allies. Eric stepped back. 5 allies? That is unbelievable. Alan clenched his fists. And this is just one sector. We have not even counted all their systems. The scouts fell silent as they observed a massive transport fleet leaving a human planet. Ships moved in perfect coordination. Soldiers boarded quickly. Supplies were loaded efficiently. No hesitation. No mistakes. Lila's voice was tense. Captain, they are calm. They do not rush. They do not fear. Even in the presence of potential enemies, they continue their work as if it is normal. Alan shook his head slowly. They are not afraid because they are ready. They are ready for everything. Eric added, Captain, I am seeing patterns in their training. They rotate units continuously. No one grows tired. No one makes mistakes for long. They train in cycles that last months and years. Their skill grows steadily, and they replace losses immediately.
Alan felt the weight of their findings.
This is not a regular army. This is an endless army. A machine built from humans. But humans are not machines. Lila tapped on the console. Captain, I have tracked a single human fleet for 3 days. It traveled from one system to another, stopping briefly at colonies to resupply. Every planet it visited launched additional ships. At this rate, they could surround any enemy fleet within weeks.
Alan's eyes narrowed.
Weeks? To surround us, that is impossible. Eric shook his head. It is not impossible. It is exactly what they could do, if they choose to. The scout ship moved on, keeping distance. Every new system revealed more fleets, more soldiers, and more cities dedicated to war preparation. On one planet, underground factories produced new fighters continuously. On another, soldiers trained under harsh conditions, learning endurance and precision. Lila said quietly, "Captain, I am also seeing civilians join fleets voluntarily. Men, women, even older citizens. They want to serve." Alan felt a strange unease. They fight not because they must, but because they want to protect something. Eric added, "Yes, families, homes, planets. They see war as their responsibility, not just a duty."
Alan nodded slowly. This is a different kind of war.
Not one fought for power or conquest. One fought for survival. One fought for everything they love. The scouts continued to observe. One planet had massive training fields with human soldiers, marching in lines that stretched beyond the horizon. Drones measured every movement. Machines assisted every step. Commanders monitored every detail. Nothing was left to chance. Eric whispered, "Captain, even their mistakes are planned for. If a unit fails, another unit is ready to replace it immediately." Alan's voice was low. "They do not waste time, energy, or life. They accept loss and continue anyway." Lila's voice trembled. "Captain, we should send the report now." Command must know. Alan shook his head. "Not yet. We need more. The scale of this army is beyond our understanding. We need proof." Eric checked the data again. "Captain, we are recording everything. Every fleet, every army, every planet." Alan exhaled slowly. "Good. Command will not believe us without this." They moved to another human system. The scouts observed massive orbital stations, new ships launching continuously, and troops being transported to battle-ready positions. Civilian workers built defenses at an incredible speed. Every human was part of the preparation. Lila spoke softly, almost in awe. "Captain, these numbers are changing every hour. They are growing faster than we can measure." Alan nodded. "And we are only seeing a small part. There are systems we have not reached yet. The real size of their army may be unimaginable." Eric leaned back. "Captain, what happens if they decide to fight? Not for territory, not for glory, but just to survive?" Alan's jaw tightened. "Then the galaxy will be in danger." "Humans will not stop. They will fight until nothing threatens them." Lila swallowed.
Even if it means millions of deaths? Alan's eyes were dark. Even if it means millions of deaths?
"They do not fight like us. They fight like humans." The scouts remained silent as they watched one final fleet move into formation. Ships of every size lined up perfectly. Soldiers boarded transports. Supply ships followed behind. Machines prepared for the next phase. Bad humans were ready. Humans were endless. And humans were nothing like the scouts had expected. The mission that had seemed simple in the beginning now felt impossible. They could count ships, measure armies, and track movements, but the true power of humans could not be measured. It was in their endurance, their willingness, their unity, a species that refused to be conquered, a species that survived against all odds. Alan Brooks looked at the holographic display, his heart heavy. "We need to report this," he said finally. "But the truth may terrify them." Lila and Eric nodded. They understood. The galaxy would soon learn that humans were not weak, not divided, not fragile. They were an unstoppable force, quietly growing, patiently waiting, and ready for anything. And the scouts knew one thing clearly. Humanity's army was far larger, far stronger, and far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The alien scouts had never seen anything like it. Every system they visited, every planet they observed added more proof. Humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. Captain Alan Brooks stood in the command chamber, his hands gripping the railing, staring at the vast human fleet on the screen. He could not stop thinking about the numbers. Millions of humans, trained, armed, and disciplined, ready to fight if needed. Lila Grant worked quickly at her console, running calculations, scanning transmissions. "Captain," she said softly, "I am beginning to understand something. Humans are not just building armies. They are building a civilization that fights as one. Every person contributes. Every person matters." Alan rubbed his forehead. "We thought humans were weak. That they were scattered and unorganized. We were wrong. Completely wrong." Eric Coleman, still young and nervous, pointed at the screen. "Captain, look at this fleet. They are moving in formation, but their formation changes constantly. They adjust automatically, as if the whole fleet is one mind." Alan frowned. "No species can do that. Not without some form of control we do not understand." Lila shook her head. "It is not control. It is training, discipline, coordination. Every human knows their role. Every human knows what the others will do."
Eric stared at the numbers.
"And every civilian can become a soldier if needed. They are not separate from the army."
They are part of it. Everyone is ready. Alan felt a chill. They are not just preparing for war. They are preparing for survival, and they are good at it. Better than anyone else we have faced. The scouts moved to another system. Below them, a human planet was alive with activity. Soldiers marched in endless lines. Machines carried weapons and supplies across the land. Drones flew above, guiding every movement. Factories produced more vehicles and weapons at an incredible speed. Humans worked together as if nothing could stop them. Lila whispered, "Captain, they are calm. Even under observation, they do not panic. They do not hesitate. They continue their work as if it is normal. This is incredible." Alan nodded slowly. They have faced war before. They have survived losses that would destroy other species. That is why they are ready. That is why they are patient. Eric pointed to the map. "Captain, there are multiple layers of defense on every planet. If one line fails, another is ready, then another, then another. They plan for every possible scenario."
Alan's jaw tightened.
No species does this. They do not accept failure and continue without hesitation.
Humans do. The scouts observed another fleet leaving a planet.
Hundreds of ships moved together, escorted by smaller fighters. Transport ships carried soldiers and equipment. Civilian ships joined as well, adding supplies and reinforcements. Isla said quietly, "Captain, the civilians, they are volunteering. Men, women, even older people. They want to serve." Alan shook his head slowly. "They fight not for glory, not for conquest, but for their people, for their homes. That is dangerous. That is different." Eric added, "They do not fight like us. They fight like humans. With everything they have and without stopping." Alan studied the fleets. "And they have millions more we cannot see. They have hidden reserves, factories we cannot track, soldiers in cities and underground. This is endless." The scouts moved to a safe distance and observed human training grounds. Millions of humans marched in formation, their steps synchronized across miles of land. Drones and machines monitored every movement. Soldiers rotated constantly, learning endurance and precision. No one stopped. No one rested for long. Lila spoke softly, almost in awe. "Captain, even their mistakes are planned for. If a unit fails, another unit is ready to replace it immediately."
Alan's voice was low. "They do not waste time, energy, or life.
They accept loss and continue anyway. They survive no matter what." Eric leaned closer to his console. "Captain, I am seeing patterns in their fleet movements. Every fleet has backups. Every planet has multiple layers of defense. Every system is prepared for attack and for counterattack. They are ready for anything. Alan's eyes narrowed. And they are growing stronger every day. They learn from history. They remember losses. They adapt. That is why they are dangerous. That is why they will survive when others fail. The scouts followed a fleet for several days. They tracked ships moving from system to system, gathering more troops, supplies, and equipment. Every movement was planned. Every step had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was forgotten. Lila whispered, "Captain, their endurance is incredible. They could fight for years and still have reserves ready. They do not stop."
Alan nodded.
And they do not fight for themselves. They fight for everything they care about. That is what makes them dangerous. That is what makes them different.
Eric checked the communications again. "Captain, they're coordinating every planet, every fleet, every soldier."
They know where everyone is at all times. They can respond to any threat immediately. Alan felt a weight on his shoulders. This is not a regular army. This is a civilization that fights as one. A species that refuses to lose. A species that will survive at all costs. The scouts moved to another system. They observed more fleets, more soldiers, more factories. Humans trained under harsh conditions, learning endurance, strength, and strategy. Drones measured their performance. Machines guided their movements. Commanders watched every detail. Nothing was left to chance. Lila said softly, "Captain, even the civilians are prepared. If war comes, every person can fight. Every person knows their role."
Alan felt a chill. They do not just prepare for war.
They prepare for survival, and they are willing to lose thousands to gain millions later. They accept loss as part of life. Eric whispered, "Captain, if humans decide to fight, no one in the galaxy will stop them. They will fight until nothing threatens them." Alan looked at the human fleets moving below, and they will not stop until they win. They will adapt, endure, and survive. That is what makes them dangerous. That is what makes them human. The scouts recorded every movement, every fleet, every army. They watched civilians train, factories produce, and soldiers march. They could not believe what they saw. Humans were not weak. Humans were not scattered. Humans were endless. Lila spoke softly, almost in fear. "Captain, the numbers, the scale, it is beyond our understanding. We cannot measure them. We cannot predict them. We cannot stop them." Alan nodded slowly. "We must report this to command. They need to know. But the truth may terrify them." Eric leaned back, his voice quiet.
Captain, if humans decide to fight, they will not stop for anything.
They will survive, and the galaxy will never be the same. Alan looked at the holographic display, his heart heavy. This is not just a species rising. This is a force no one can ignore. A species that will not fail. A species that will survive. The scout ship remained in orbit for one last observation. Human fleets moved in perfect formation. Soldiers trained endlessly, and civilians continued their work. Machines assisted, drones guided, and commanders oversaw. Humans were ready. Humans were endless. Humans were nothing like the scouts had imagined. Alan Brooks turned to his officers. "We will send the report. Every detail. Every fleet. Every army. Every person. They must know the truth." Lila nodded. "Captain, they will not believe it. The scale, the discipline, the endurance, it is too much." Alan's jaw tightened. "They will have to." Humans are not just strong. They are patient, disciplined, and willing to endure anything. That is what makes them unstoppable. Eric whispered, "Captain, the galaxy will be afraid when they realize the truth."
Alan nodded slowly.
"Yes, and that is only the beginning. The humans are ready. The humans are endless. And nothing will stop them if they decide to survive." The scout ship moved away. leaving human space behind. But the image of millions of humans, trained, armed, and prepared, remained in the minds of the scouts. They had seen something no species had ever seen before. A species that did not fight for glory. A species that fought to survive. And in that fight, they were invincible. The scouts knew one thing for certain. The humans were not to be underestimated. The humans were not weak. The humans were endless. And the galaxy had no idea what it was facing. The alien scouts had seen enough to know that humans were not a weak species. The more they observed, the more impossible it seemed. Captain Alan Brooks leaned over the command console, his eyes scanning the endless streams of data. Every fleet, every soldier, every civilian contribution confirmed the same truth. Humans were prepared for war like no species before. Lila Grant sat at her station, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. "Captain," she said, "we need to give command a full report. They will not believe what we have seen otherwise."
Alan shook his head slowly. "I know, but do you understand what we are sending?"
"We are saying that one species has fleets larger than entire Allied armies combined, that they can train millions simultaneously, that civilians are part of the army, that they accept loss and continue without stopping. Command will think we are exaggerating." Eric Coleman, still young but sharp, leaned forward. "Captain, I think the truth is even worse than we realize. They are not just growing in numbers. They are growing in skill, in coordination, in endurance. And every day they become stronger." Alan clenched his fists. "We cannot underestimate them. They do not fight like us. They fight with purpose. They fight to survive. And they are patient. They do not rush. They wait. They plan. And they endure." The scout ship moved to another human system. Below them, the planet was alive with activity. Millions of humans trained in perfect synchronization. Machines moved alongside them, carrying weapons, supplies, and equipment. Drones flew above, guiding every movement and sending data to the human command network. Lila tapped the console. "Captain, they rotate units continuously. No one grows tired. No one fails for long. Mistakes are corrected immediately. Their endurance is unmatched." Alan frowned. "They are preparing for something we cannot imagine. They are not just building an army. They are building a civilization that fights as one."
Eric pointed to the holographic display. "Captain, look at this."
Every fleet, every transport, every troop movement is coordinated with precision. Every planet is aware of every other planet. They respond instantly to any changes or threats. They have no gaps. Alan exhaled slowly. They are not just defending. They are ready to strike if needed. But they do not attack recklessly. They are patient. They wait for the right moment. And when they act as one. The scouts continued to observe. On one planet, a training field stretched beyond the horizon. Millions of humans marched in formation. Their steps synchronized across miles. Machines and drones assisted them, measuring every movement. Commanders monitored every detail, correcting errors and guiding the soldiers. Lila whispered,
"Captain, even the civilians are trained."
"If a war comes, every person can fight. Every person knows their role. They are prepared for anything." Alan nodded slowly. "They are ready for survival, not for glory. That makes them different. That makes them dangerous." Eric studied the communications network. "Captain, their coordination is incredible. They know where every soldier is at all times. Every fleet is backed up. Every planet is protected. There is no weakness we can find." Alan's eyes narrowed, and they are growing stronger every day. They learn from history. They remember losses. They adapt. That is why they are unstoppable. The scouts moved to a safe distance to observe another fleet. Hundreds of ships moved in formation, escorted by smaller fighters. Transport ships carried soldiers and equipment. Civilian ships joined as well, adding supplies and reinforcements. Lila said softly, "Captain, they are calm. Even under observation, they do not panic. They continue their work as if it is normal." Alan nodded. "They fight with everything they have. They do not stop. They survive no matter what." That is their strength. That is their danger. Eric whispered, Captain, if humans decide to fight, no one in the galaxy will stop them. They will endure anything. They will survive anything. And they will win. Alan studied the fleets moving below. They do not fight for power. They fight for survival. They fight for everything they care about. That is why they are different. That is why they will not fail. The scouts continued to record everything. They watched fleets move from planet to planet, soldiers train endlessly, and civilians contribute to the war effort. Machines assisted, drones guided, and commanders oversaw every action. Humans were ready. Humans were endless. Humans were nothing like the scouts had expected. Lila spoke quietly, almost in fear. Captain! The numbers, the scale, it is beyond our understanding. We cannot measure them. We cannot predict them. We cannot stop them. Alan nodded slowly. We must report this to command. They need to know. But the truth may terrify them. Eric leaned back, his voice quiet. Captain, if humans decide to fight, they will not stop for anything. They will survive. And the galaxy will never be the same. Alan looked at the holographic display, his heart heavy. This is not just a species rising. This is a force no one can ignore. A species that will not fail. A species that will survive. The scout ship moved away, leaving human space behind. But the image of millions of humans, trained, armed, and prepared, remained in the minds of the scouts. They had seen something no species had ever seen before. A species that did not fight for glory. A species that fought to survive. And in that fight, they were invincible. The scouts knew one thing for certain. The humans were not to be underestimated. The humans were not weak. The humans were endless. And the galaxy had no idea what it was facing. The alien scouts were silent. For days they had traveled across human space, recording fleets, armies, and civilian activity. They had watched planets alive with movement, training, and preparation. They had seen numbers that no species could imagine. And now Captain Alan Brooks knew the time had come. They had to report their findings. Lila, Alan said quietly, prepare the report. Every detail, every fleet, every army, every civilian contribution. Command must know the truth. Lila nodded, her hands moving quickly across the console. Captain, do you understand what we are sending? This report will change everything. They will not believe it. Alan shook his head slowly. They have to believe it. They must understand that humans are not just strong. They are patient. They are disciplined. They are endless. Herrick Coleman stepped forward. Captain, even now as we leave, their fleets continue to move. Training continues. Civilians continue to work. Factories produce more ships and weapons. They are unstoppable. Alan stared at the holographic display. They are ready for survival, not for conquest. They fight for everything they love. That is what makes them dangerous. That is what makes them human. The scout ship moved to a safe distance. Alan activated the communication array. He began sending the report to the alien command. It was long and detailed, filled with numbers and observations, fleet movements, population data, and everything they had seen. Every system, every planet, every layer of defense was included. Lila worked beside him, double-checking every calculation. Captain! They will think this is exaggeration. No species could be like this. Dan Wabad, Alan nodded slowly. Then we include proof. Images, sensor logs, fleet movements, everything. They cannot deny what we have seen. Eric leaned over his console. Captain, even with proof, I do not think they will fully understand. They have never faced a species like humans before. Alan's eyes were dark. Then they will learn, and it will be terrifying. As the report transmitted, the scouts observed one final fleet. Thousands of human ships moved in formation, escorted by smaller fighters. Transport ships carried soldiers and supplies. Civilian ships joined as well. The movement was precise, coordinated, and calm. Lila whispered,
Captain.
Even now they are ready. They do not panic. They do not fear. They continue their work. Alan nodded. They have faced war before. They survived. And they learned. That is why they are ready for anything. Eric pointed to the screen. Captain, every fleet we tracked is only a fraction of their forces. Millions more are hidden in factories, training grounds, cities. They are endless. Alan exhaled slowly. They are patient. They endure loss. They rebuild faster than any enemy can destroy them. That is what makes them unstoppable. The scouts recorded everything, sending logs back with a report. Every detail, every movement, every calculation was transmitted. Humans were not just ready. They were unstoppable. Lila shook her head. Captain, even with all this data, how can we warn them enough? No empire can face humans and survive if humans decide to fight. Alan's voice was low. They will survive. They will endure. They will win. That is what humans do. They fight for survival, and they do not stop until nothing threatens them. The scout ship moved away from human space, leaving the planets behind. But the image of endless humans, trained, armed, and ready, remained in the minds of the scouts. They had seen a species unlike any other, a species that would not fail, a species that would survive at all costs. Alan sent the final part of the report. Command must understand, he said. Humans are patient. Humans are disciplined. Humans are endless. If anyone tests them, the galaxy will regret it. Lila tapped the console. The data is complete. Every fleet, every army, every civilian contribution. Nothing is missing. Eric leaned back, his face pale. Captain, do you think the elders will listen? Do you think they will believe us? Alan shook his head slowly. They will have to. If they ignore this, it will be their mistake. Humans do not fight for conquest. They fight to survive. And when humans fight, nothing can stop them. The scout ship drifted through space, leaving human systems behind. The stars stretched endlessly, but Alan's mind stayed on what he had seen. Fleets larger than entire Allied armies, millions of soldiers trained to perfection, civilians willing to fight, machines assisting in every movement. Humans were a force beyond imagination. Lila said softly, Captain, the galaxy does not know what it is facing. They cannot understand humans.
Alan nodded. No.
They cannot. Humans are patient. Humans endure. Humans fight for survival.
That is why they are unstoppable. Eric added, Captain,
if humans decide to act, no one can stop them. Alan's jaw tightened. Then the galaxy will learn the hard way. Humans are not weak. They are not divided. They are endless, and nothing will stop them if they choose to survive. The scouts continued to watch from a distance. Human fleets moved in perfect formation. Soldiers trained endlessly, and civilians contributed to the war effort. Machines assisted, drones guided, and commanders oversaw every action. Humans were ready. Humans were endless. Humans were nothing like the scouts had imagined. Alan turned to his officers. We have done our duty. The report is complete. Now we return and hope command listens.
Lila nodded. Captain,
I have never seen a species like this. They do not fight for glory. They fight for survival, and they do not stop. Alan stared at the stars. And that is why humans are dangerous. That is why they are unstoppable. And that is why no one in the galaxy should underestimate them. The scout ship moved away, leaving human space behind. But the scouts carried what they had seen in their minds. Humans were not weak. Humans were not scattered. Humans were endless. And the galaxy had no idea what it was facing. The alien command received the report. Leaders studied the data, numbers, and images. They were silent. For the first time, they realized that humans were not a rising species. They were a sleeping giant, a species that had grown stronger than anyone imagined, a species that refused to fail. Alan, Lila, and Eric waited for the response. They knew the truth. The humans would survive. They would endure. They would fight. And the galaxy had never faced anything like them before. For the first time, the aliens understood. Provoking humans would be a mistake. Waking them would be deadly. The humans were ready, endless, and unstoppable. And the galaxy would never forget it.